Hello everyone, welcome to Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com's comparison of Bandai's armored parts for the Renewal version VF-25 toys and the original version VF-25 toys. This is Bandai's DX 160 scale line of toys. The Renewal version was released in July 2012 for about 8,200 yen. The original version was released in July of 2009 for 6,500 yen. So obviously the Renewal version is a little bit more expensive, and the Renewal version doesn't come with a display stand. Instead, the Renewal version VF-25 toys themselves come with a display stand, but it does come with display stand adapters, whereas the original version toys did not come with display stands, so their armored parts did. Okay, so I'm going to go through quickly, show you a comparison of the major parts that go onto these toys, and then we'll go through the modes and look at them a little bit more closely. So let's start with the leg armors. So I have Renewal version and original version. Both toys have the same landing gear mechanism, but when the fully deployed landing gear on the original version is out, there's a little resistance on the original versions. Oops. Not so much, just goes right back in. And as you can see, there's lots of detail changes, the vents on the side, a little more paint applications. And then here's your armored missile doors on the original version. You can see the detail on the newer versions a little bit better, as well as the detail on the landing gear itself there. So Renewal version, cleaner looking, better paint applications, and more detail. One of the major issues that Bandai addressed in their Renewal version of the toy was a shortcoming with how the leg armor is installed on the original version. The original version requires you to pop off the little foot guards and close the foot so you can accommodate a sleeve-like piece of armor that slides in past the foot and then latches in, and you open your foot again, and you could reapply your foot armors at this point, foot guards or whatever these things really are. You then had a front piece of armor that kind of clips into place, beginning at the bottom and then via pegs towards the top. You then use these side missile bays to lock everything in place on the one side. And this piece of armor to lock everything on the inside of the leg. Alright, so that is the leg armor installed. Now on the newer toy, they clean this up. It's just a back sleeve or a back piece that fits easily into place, and you just pinch it with the front piece. Now it is a very tight fit, clicks together very nicely, especially towards the bottom. So you need to make sure everything lines up just right. There you go, you'll get nice popping sounds when it does. Then you have your missile bays. Same as the original toy as far as this goes, except the upper missile bay now has a lock that slides in and actually connects to the leg inside, and an interior part here, again just like the original version in this respect. The pegs in a little better. Oops. Alright, I'll clean that up, but we can move on to the next part. Alright, there are 4 other pieces that have material differences in how they connect between the Renewal version and the original version. The first piece we'll go through is the shoulder missile bays, or the above the shoulder missile bays. These pieces now, for the Renewal version, include a part you disconnect, but before we go into that, let's take a look at original, renewal version. A little bit more detail. Hard to see, there's a little painted triangle on there. And the hinge is a little more concealed. And as you saw with the leg armor, just a little bit better missile detail on there as well. And it looks like reject Legos over here. Kind of looks like missiles over there. Still some room for improvement. But in order to connect it on the renewal version, you pop off a little piece of armor that you would then have to store somewhere and be careful with. And just apply this piece of armor. Now this is the same as you saw with the super parts for the renewal version. And what this does is it allows you more mobility. Oops, with this this piece above the shoulder, which is not supposed to come off like that. Alright, easy peasy. Now on this version you just plugged it in the hole, which you can't get much easier than that. Obviously it's a very snug fit. There it goes. Once it's on, it can't move up, down, left, or right. It's just where it is. Let's get this guy positioned a little bit. Okay, so let's do hip armor since one just popped off. The hip armors on the renewal version, you have to remove the intake cover, which the original toys don't have an intake cover. And then the hip armor, which actually features an articulated piece, unlike the original hip armor, has a little clip that goes into the what housed that intake shield, and actually locks into place pretty tightly. There you heard an audible click, so that's not going anywhere. Unlike the armored hip on the older versions, which just kind of has two little clips on either side. Also an audible click, it stayed on as long as you didn't touch it, essentially. Alright, now we have the arm armors. On the older version there's a little clip in front that goes around the front of the forearm. Let's take the shield off so you can see what I'm talking about here. There is a little clip here that goes along the front, and then a little clip in the back, so it clips on front and back. Kind of like the old school Bandai or Takatoku super armors for VF1 toys. On the renewal version, there are pegs that slide into holes in the forearm, and it's just as simple as you would imagine. Clips right in, and it's super solid. Finally, we'll go on to the crotch armor. Obviously it's smaller on the renewal versions because they did a better job with that crotch area. On the original version, just clips right on. On the renewal version, you have to remove the existing piece. A little bit easier said than done. One second. So once you pry it off, it looks like that, and then you put on the new piece. And there's actually two crotch armors that come with the renewal one. One has a little slot on the bottom. I'll go into that more once I've got this toy fully armored up and we look at Batchroid mode. The differences on these next three parts are almost purely aesthetic. We have the shield that goes on the arm, which as you can see is just a little bit different as far as proportions go, but otherwise essentially the same. Just plugs right into the shield. Nothing special there. And then we have the wing root guards. Not really sure what exactly you would call these. A little bit more painted detail on the newer version, slightly different shape. On both toys you just pop off the existing guard and pop on the new one. On the original toy, there really isn't much you could do once that part is on there. It's kind of a odd shape to it. It's obviously much bigger than the original wing root, so it interferes in a lot of ways. On the Renewal version toy, it's not as much of a hassle. You can kind of function almost normally. So there is a little bit better range of motion on there. And then finally, spin the toy around here. And the last piece that is essentially the same for both toys is this radar dome part, which just kind of plugs in like so. Just again, a little bit more painted detail on the Renewal version, slightly different shape to it, but same, general idea. Just plugs right in to some holes on the back plate. If you can figure out, there you go. A little bit easier to do when you don't have lights and a camera in your face. Okay, so that's it for those parts. Alright, so staying on the back of the craft, the next part we'll look at is these giant boosters that go on the wings. Really similar. I was kind of surprised just how similar they are. But that's more a testament of how well Bandai did on the original version. Lots of clean detail. The detail's been improved on the newer version. But very similar. Both have articulated nozzles in the back. The Renewal version now comes with reaction missiles that attach to the side. So putting these on is pretty much the same for both toys. You just slide it on to the wing root. To the wing, I should say. There goes a wing root. And now this part's a little scary, but you have to clip it on. And I think this is one of the big durability issues people have with the original toy is this joint up here cracks, possibly due to the weight, but I think also due to both the connection in fighter mode and to the pressure that gets put on the toy when you're doing this action of trying to get the booster on there. Alright. So, if that's not on perfect, I will fix it in a little bit. Obviously the toy is falling over. The original toy did not do a very good job of handling all of this extra weight in Batchroid mode. I'm going to take these reaction missiles off for the moment. They look kind of silly on Batchroid mode anyways. But again, you just get that on. I find it is best to have this fin out when you're installing it on the Renewal version. Nothing scarier than applying a part that snaps on to a toy that is known to have paint issues. But alright, so that might be on right. I will adjust it certainly in a moment. Alright, so the final piece left to install is the chest armor. On the version 1 toy, the original version, there's a big hinge that's obvious on the inside of the chest. The door flips open and there's those reject Lego missiles again. On the Renewal version, the hinge is completely hidden. The door actually slides forward a little bit, then swings open, and then reveals slightly better missile detail. And Bandai, kind of taking advantage of an anime error or kind of appeasing fans because of an anime error, that's my guess anyways, also gave you the optional parts to have the doors open the other direction. So you actually remove the door, remove the missiles inside, put on the optional parts, and you can open the door the other way, which obviously was not an option on the original toys. For both toys, the chest simply plugs in. You gotta kind of, whoa, that did not break anything, don't worry, that's just a pop-on part. But there's the chest installed. Again, handling these toys makes it so you could potentially pop off lots of little pieces. I will quickly try to fix this. There we go. Alright, the Renewal version actually pops on a little bit easier, And some people have complained that it pops off a little too easy as well. So there you go. Obviously both these toys are now quite fiddly with all that extra weight on the back of them. A couple things to point out in Batchroid mode. First of all, you have better articulation in the shoulder missile bays because of the way they attach, as I alluded to earlier. Second of all, the toys now have a lot of weight over the back of the toys, so they both have a propensity to fall backwards. This is much more true on the original toys because of the way the crotch mechanism works. So what you do on the original toy is you connect the back of the fighter fuselage to the crotch, and then you lean the toy way forward. It's hardly an ideal situation. The Renewal version toys actually can handle the weight, but there's been a couple complaints that the wing roots kind of have a propensity of flattening out on you. It's not happening on my toy, but other people have complained about that. And this crotch mechanism can collapse under certain positions. Bandai has included a support that slides in underneath the crotch and connects to the fuselage and then prevents that from happening. But again, it doesn't support the wing roots. So now the toy is actually something that you can handle and pose. And this is very similar to what Bandai did with their display stand connection. The display stand really helps both of these toys, especially the version 1 toy, which you can see is having issues already. The version 2 toy can handle being in Batchroid on a shelf, but if you put it on the display stand, you can really go nuts with it, and it makes a very impressive piece. So let's go ahead and move on to Garrick Mode. In Garrick Mode, the V2 VF-25 toys feature a built-in support that makes them actually a joy to handle, and they pull off this mode very well. On the other hand, the V1 toy is cheating in a whole bunch of ways right now just to look that good. But as you can see, as soon as I start handling the toy, things start going awry. Now, Bandai did give you little supports that are supposed to connect up here, but when you get that to work, the toy looks pretty ghastly, and you can't really pose the toy in anything but that locked in position. And even just getting it in that locked in position, I found parts just falling off constantly, and it was just an absolute disaster. So really the only way you can do Garrick Mode for the version 1 toy is either in an awkward position or by using the display stand. And in the display stand, the legs kind of lean forward like so. It's just not pretty. Visit anymoon.com, I'll show you lots of pictures of that. Finally, we have Fighter Mode. Fighter Mode was where I thought the original version armored parts did their best, because they help conceal a lot of the weaknesses of the underlying toy. Obviously the Renewal toy, a lot less underlying weaknesses, looks great in this mode as well as the other modes. But let's look at the original version first. In this mode, the parts stay on relatively well. Getting to this mode, you're going to have a bunch of frustration, lots of parts flying off. It is a big pain in the butt to transform this toy with the armor on. A lot of times you're just going to knock all the armor off and end up putting most of it back on again. The landing gears, as I mentioned earlier, no tension. They're going to want to fall back on you, so you trap them as best you can with the rest of the armor. The front landing gear is the same problem. So lots of problems with the landing gear. You can't fit the gun in the original version, which is silly because all they needed to do was give you a longer extension and it would have worked, but they didn't do that. Speaking of extensions, you could get this original version 2 different ways. One was a Tamashii website. The second was a bundle package with a VF-25S toy. The bundle package comes with a neck extension to make Batchroid look a little better. If you got the Tamashii exclusives, you did not get that extension. So that was a bummer. So it handles this mode relatively well. Getting here, a pain in the butt, and some weaknesses with landing gears and the inability to stow the gun. The Renewal version does stow the gun, but I mentioned there was some tension on these landing gears. They're still not enough. You're going to find them falling back, and that's a pain in the butt. in order to get the gun to stay on in fighter mode, there's a little plastic clip that keeps those legs tighter together. There you can see a landing gear falling down on me. The other thing you're going to want to watch out for is this chest armor. If you handle the toy with putting minimal pressure there, it won't pop off on you. If you do put any pressure there, it will. Otherwise, this toy does pretty well in this mode. I think it looks pretty darn good. And both toys come, well, the original VF-25 armor comes with a display stand. The Renewal version, the display stand comes with the actual VF-25 toy. There are attachment pieces with the Renewal armor. This is the Renewal toy. You can see here's the reaction missiles clipped on. There were reaction missiles for the original toy, but they were part of another bundle sold separately. Alright, thanks for viewing. Visit anymoon.com. I'm going to have lots of comparisons of the individual armor parts so you can see just how much more detail there is on the Renewal version, and lots of comparisons of the fully done up toys. Thanks for viewing.